Recording again. So please pay attention to my screen. So some of you might have discovered essentially that you can also add physics simulations. I'm going to delete the cube, select, press X and delete, then press Shift A, and I'm going to add the plane. And go into edit mode by pressing tab, scale it 5 times, and then right click to subdivide, 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 subdivide. And I'm gonna take it, grab and move it about 10 meters in height. So grab Z 10 meters, and in that position where my cursor is, I'm going to add another tube. Actually, I'll try a UV sphere rather than a cube. Enter edit mode, scale it twice. And now the point is, if I try and press play with the animation, obviously nothing happens because I haven't activated anything yet. So I need to go where it says physics. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have the sphere selected and click on collision. So that immediately creates essentially the object, imagine it as a solid, right? So something that things will collide with it. And then I select the plane, and I will create not a soft body, but a cloth. And you get essentially some numbers here. We'll start playing, but before we go there, press play. And I get a very realistic deformation of that as a kind of tablecloth, yeah? More so if I start to go object, shade smooth, let's see how this behaves. And we can play a lot more with it so that we get more of a realistic kind of idea. First of all, we can also increase the quality steps. The more you increase these quality steps, the more your computer will be a little bit slower. But also I can do certain presets like silk. So let's try silk. Or leather. So you see immediately numbers change. I'll go back to silk. So immediately it puts those presets in. Let's see. I should get much more of a smooth kind of idea. And obviously by simulating, what I get is I get a realistic deformation of the cloth, and you see how it drapes essentially, right? So if I have a piece of clothing, actually, my fashion items, and I have a good subdivision on them, I can really simulate how they drape over the body, yeah? So it becomes like a virtual mannequin, and I can really adapt exactly how it's going to behave, okay? But for you to understand this, we had to introduce animation, right? So, and I'm going to change it now. Maybe silk is too expensive. I'll go with denim. Reset it again by pressing on the back button. Play again. And you get a much more drapey and bouncy kind of idea. And one of the things you can start doing is look at how the presets change essentially the numbers. And you'll see silk, for example, the stiffness, so the tension, compression, and stiffness here. So these words essentially mean Tension is how the fabric can be pulled out. Compression is how you press it together, right? And shear is how the forces actually work perpendicular to the fabric. Same thing for damping. You know, these are lower numbers. But when I go to denim, which is very stiff, you know, we would expect essentially a jean to be much more stiff than a silk garment, obviously. You see these numbers increase, and same for the damping, actually. If I go rubber, you get a really funny, bouncy kind of idea. And also, one of the things that affects this, and I'll show it to you by selecting both objects, Shift D to duplicate, and now look at this. This one has 3 subdivisions, and here I will add one more. So I get much more detailed geometry. Same settings. And you see essentially that the one that has much more geometry, I get more of detail and a much more resolution in the animation, yeah, and much more believable. So essentially, what can happen is once you have your clothes designed, and you know that's the final bit, is you can add geometry by subdividing, and then that will start creating more of a natural feel to it. And obviously you also need a mannequin, because this doesn't work without a collision, right? So if I do the same experiment, Shift right click to select all, Shift D to duplicate, and I remove that, so that cloth doesn't have anything else to collide with, you will see that it will just go away and disappear ad infinitum, right? So what I want you to do is create 2 objects, one at preferably one that is flat on top of one that is below. For the sphere, add a collision that you see here. You need to go to physics, add a collision, and then for the cloth, add a cloth for the plane, and play with the animation until you get something interesting.